Hey, welcome back to Postal Barbecue. I'm Jabin Postal, and today at the grill, I'm setting up the grill low and slow for a full day smoked brisket cook that's absolutely delicious. And so, just like always, I'm gonna put all the show notes as well as the full recipe in the description box below for you, so make sure to click down there to see everything that you need for this cook. Also, if you like what we're doing on this channel, consider subscribing for more great barbecue recipes, tutorials, and reviews. Now, other than that, let's get into the cook. As I said, welcome back to Postal Barbecue. I appreciate you being here. Today at the grill, we're gonna be cooking up this delicious 14-pound Packer brisket using the Sloan Sear kettle, and this is gonna be a fun cook. This is actually one of the most requested videos because I haven't yet done a full proper Packer brisket on the channel. I've made it for SNS Grills, I made some flats, and I made a really bad one as my very first video on this channel. And so don't go watch that one unless you want a good laugh. And so, as I said, this is a full Packer brisket. Is about 14 pounds, and the brisket is made up of two muscles. We got the point muscle as well as the flat muscle, and the flat is a little more lean and the point is a little bit more fatty. And so when you cook these two together, you're left with such a great combination of that lean and fatty meat coming together all in the same bite. And with any brisket like this, it's very important to start out right from the beginning by trimming it the way it should be trimmed, because there's so much fat on the outside surface of this brisket. If you don't address it at all, you're going to be left with a brisket that's not up to your standard, or you're going to be left with a bunch of meat that you're not even going to consume because it's just so fatty or crispy and overcooked because we didn't take that time to remove some of those little pieces. And for me, when it comes to trimming, I like to start on the flat section. You'll notice there's a bunch of silver skin and some extra fat on there. I'm going to remove all of this. I'm just going to take the tip of my knife and just slide it underneath there. Put my hand under there. It's going to help just lift this brisket up. Get under. There we go. And you know, because this is just backyard cooking, go ahead and trim it as much or as little as you prefer. This is, like I said, how I like to trim my briskets when it's the backyard or when I'm cooking for people. All right, I'm gonna leave the rest of this on there. It's not gonna be a problem with this cook, but this big decal of fat here is one thing that concerns me. So I'm gonna take my sharp knife and I'm gonna slice this off. And I'm just gonna start with a 45-degree angle first of all. All right, I'm gonna call this flat section done. So let's flip it over and I'm gonna spin it around this way. And on this side, you're gonna notice that there's a bunch of feathery brown meat, and I'm gonna cut this off. This is just sort of remains from the butchering process when they cut this brisket out of the cow. So I'm just gonna take my knife and slice just a thin layer of this off. And again, right here, I'm gonna do the same. And then you'll notice that on this ridge here, there's a larger deposit of fat. I want to bring my fat down about 1/4 of the way inch from the point all the way down to the tail of the flat. And so again, just be careful with this because you don't want to cut into the meat if you don't have to. There we go. So let's flip this over. I'm going to do this next side. And so just like the other side, we're going to be addressing some of these sort of things. And so I'm just going to grab my knife and slice this right off. I'm going to slice a little bit of that edge off. All right, so far this looks pretty good to me. You'll notice that this flap here is a little bit thin, so I'm gonna trim this back a little bit, as well as I'm gonna round out this back corner as well. So when it's cooking, we don't dry out this corner, and we're just left with a nice presentation. And so just slide this over, and like I said, I'm gonna round this out about like this. And when you do that, don't throw this out. I just did a bunch of briskets this past weekend and I turned all of it into hamburger meat, and let me tell you, it was absolutely delicious. And so, okay, we got that corner there. I'm gonna trim this off a little bit as well. All right, this brisket is fully trimmed the way I would normally do it. It has some great shape to it. There's nothing protruding. There's no square edges. There's just great airflow all throughout this. And so when the heat and the smoke hits it, it's just gonna circulate around it, adding to the bark and the flavor of this brisket. So to season my brisket today, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to start on the bottom side. And I am today going to use some yellow mustard as a binder for my rub to stick to. If you want to use some oil, some hot sauce, or just nothing at all, that's totally up to you. I like just to use just a thin layer of that yellow mustard. Today I'm going to be seasoning it with my Mad Cow beef rub. This stuff goes incredibly well on beef, especially brisket. But if you don't have the Mad Cow, go ahead and use a combination of half kosher salt and half coarse black pepper. So let's go ahead and season this brisket. And this is a big cut of meat, and so it can handle quite a bit of that barbecue rub. Make sure we get the sides nice. There we go. I'm going to flip it over and do the same to the other side. So I'm going to start with that yellow mustard again. So rub that around. Then just like the underside, I'm going to season the top nicely with that Mad Cow beef rub. All right, with my brisket all trimmed up nicely and seasoned with that Mad Cow beef rub, I'm going to place it into the fridge covered with some plastic wrap. And this is going to allow the salsas to penetrate into the core of this brisket, giving us a nice seasoned bite every time. And so I'm going to get this into the fridge, and tomorrow morning I'll come back and I'll show you how I set up the slow and sear kettle for cooking around 250 degrees. So to set up our grill today for cooking, I placed in about 20 briquettes into the slow and sear, and I got those coals fully lit. Once those coals are fully lit, I then filled up the remainder of the slow and sear basket with unlit briquettes, as well as I added hot water to the water reservoir. Once the slow and sear kettle was filled up, I then closed the lid and adjusted my top vent about 1/3 of the way open, as well as the smoke hole 1/3 of the way open with our bottom vent fully closed. All right, guys, it's the next day, and this cook is already off to a great start. I was up bright and early this morning, just as the sun was rising, to get the grill started, and I locked it in around that 250 degree mark. And then once the grill was locked in, I placed the brisket onto the grill opposite the coals, and then I placed a digital thermometer into the thickest part of this brisket. I also added in a little bit of hickory wood just to add a bit of smoky flavor to this brisket, and then I closed the lid and let that brisket just bathe away in that hickory wood. And so that was about 3.5 hours ago when I first put that brisket on, and I haven't touched it since. And so let's open up the grill and just take a look. All right, guys, just take a look at this. We've got some really nice color forming. That bark is starting to set up. There is a little bit of dry spots on there, as well as some pooling. And so these are some of the things that I want to address at this point. And so to get started with, I'm going to get rid of that pooling. I have a block of wood that I'm going to stick underneath this just to kind of tip it up a little bit. And I'm going to be monitoring that spot as we continue to cook. I'm going to grab my apple cider vinegar water mixture and just going to spritz some of those drier sections. There we go. And then so I'm just going to leave it like this. I get this lid closed back up, and I'm going to continue to check it probably every 45 minutes to an hour just to give it a spritz on some of those dry sections. I may open it up a little bit early and just rotate that brisket just to promote some even cooking, because there is a little bit of a difference from the side closer to the fire versus closer to the bowl. And so I'm going to come back in a little bit of time just to see if we need to rotate this brisket. All right, I'm at the 4.5 hour mark, and the kettle has been holding its temperature around that 250 degree mark, but I do want to open up the grill and just rotate this brisket around just to get some even browning and even color onto the side that's closer to the lid bowl. And so let's just open up the lid and do that. All right, this is looking really nice. There's that pooling again, so I'm just gonna rotate this. Make sure we get that block back underneath there. And then I'm also going to just give it one last spritz again, just on those drier spots. There we go. So I'm going to quickly close back up this lid, and I'm going to continue to cook this brisket until the bark has fully set up. This is going to be probably a couple more hours, and so we'll come back when it's set to wrap in some butcher's paper. All right, I'm 6.5 hours into this brisket cook, and everything is going as planned. The pooling that I was seeing is kind of subsided a little bit since I flipped it around. And so let's go ahead and open up the grill and just take a peek at this. All right, so just take a look at this. You can see that that bark has formed up quite nicely. There's still a little bit of that pooling in there, but it's not a big concern with this cook today. So let's get it off the grill and onto our foil. I'm gonna quickly close this back up. And so when it comes to wrapping your brisket, I like to just offset it just slightly like this. And then you'll notice I do have some beef tallow that I rendered down from some of the beef trimmings from this brisket. And so I'm gonna just pour this over top of some of those drier spots and just let it kind of flow. You're just gonna pour the rest over top of the butcher's paper and just rub it around. All right, so to wrap this, I'm just gonna fold it over once. And just tuck it underneath just like a present. Fold it over again. I'm gonna do the same to that. There we go. And then with this little tail, I'm just gonna fold it underneath here. There we go, that's nice and tight. So let's get this back onto the grill. Then I'm also gonna place my digital thermometer back into the center of this brisket. And then lastly, because my coals are running low, I'm just gonna move the coals off to the one side in the slow sear, and then fill up the other side with unlit briquettes. So with everything back on the grill, I'm gonna close up the lid and I'm gonna continue to cook this now to tenderness. And so I'm gonna bump up my temperatures just slightly to about 275. And this is just gonna help speed up the cook a little bit, as well as help push us through the stall a little bit easier. And so it's gonna take a number of hours still, but we're gonna come back when this brisket is probe tender. My brisket has now been on the slow sear kettle for just under 10 hours. The last couple hours have been wrapped in that butcher's paper, cooking around 275 the entire time. And my internal temperature has just reached 201 degrees. And so this is usually when I like to start to probe the brisket for tenderness. Anywhere between that 200 and 205 degree mark is usually going to be your target temperature. But again, we're going for probe tenderness. And so let's open up the grill and probe this brisket. Take that out. And I'm gonna use the existing holes that are already in here. Ooh, this feels so good already. And let's probe the flat. Oh yeah, this is totally done. Yeah guys, this brisket is probe tender. It's exactly what I'm looking for. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna remove it from the grill and place it in a Cambro to rest for a couple hours. And this is very important because as the meat rests, it's gonna just relax a little bit, as well as the juices are gonna redistribute throughout that brisket, making for a more tender and juicy bite. And so I'm gonna pull it off, place it in the Cambro, and then we'll come back and get ready for the taste test. It's been 12 hours now since I first put this brisket into the kettle, and it looks phenomenal. You can see that it's got some nice jiggle to it. And this is one of the things that I'm looking for when it comes time to slicing. So let's go ahead and slice it down the middle and see how we did. There we go. Just look at how juicy that is. Let's look at the point section. Oh my goodness. Guys, this turned out great from first impression. The bark is set up nicely. There's a little bit of softness from where it was pooling, but it's not an issue. So let's go ahead and slice this into 1/4 inch slices. Okay guys, I'm gonna grab this piece right here, right from the middle. And guys, just take a look at that. You can see it's got some nice bend to it. It's tender, it's juicy. Let's pull it apart and see how it is. It's got some nice pull. Oh my goodness, this looks absolutely phenomenal. All right, I've waited long enough for this taste test, and it's well deserved. And so let me go for a taste of the flat. Oh my goodness, that's so worth the wait. This brisket flat turned out phenomenal. It's not dry, it's tender and juicy. It's got a ton of flavor from that mad cow beef rub. This is phenomenal. All right, so let's cut the point. And so I'm actually gonna cut it this way because those two muscles meet sort of in the middle. I'm gonna cut it this way to get my point pieces. There we go. We'll get some nice burnt ends out of this one. Guys, just take a look at that. You can see, again, that nice smoke ring. It's floppy, it is tender, it is incredible. And so I'm gonna pull off this piece right here. Oh my goodness, this is tender. This is by far my favorite piece right here. So let's see how it is. Oh man. Brisket almost doesn't get better than this. This is phenomenal. It's tender, it's juicy, it's all things delicious. You know, if you've never tried cooking a brisket on a kettle grill before, make sure to give it a try, because this is the result that you get. It's perfectly tender, it's juicy, it's smoky, it's flavorful, it's salty, it's peppery, it's delicious. And so make sure you give this a try, because you're not going to be disappointed. So that's how you make that delicious low and slow smoked brisket using the kettle grill. I hope you give it a try. Hey, if you want to see more barbecue videos just like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. Also, special thank you to all my patrons out there who help support this channel every single week. Until next time, keep that fire lit and get cooking.